Erev Tov Chavrim, I'm Steve Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live, and now Debka File has actually come out with the story, urgent consultations in Washington, Moscow on reported U.S.-Russian submarines in firefight. We have been working with our sources from around the globe today on this very issue. I have been a bit hesitant to bring out the information thus far, but after Debka File has brought it out earlier, I know Hal Turner brought it out. I had already had some bit of confirmation on a very similar scenario, but not quite the way I saw with Hal Turner, more along the lines with what Debka File is reporting. That U.S. and Russian submarines were in a firefight today. And I have been told from a very high-ranking source from the D.C. area that it is a complicated situation in D.C. this evening. This was earlier today when the only thing that was reported as of yet was that the Russian submarine had actually been some type of fire had taken place, and I was also told that it would be spun in the public eye as an accident. Well, now that news is starting to differ already in the media. RT, though, did do exactly what I was told they would do, and that is that it would be spun as an accident. Of course, the next couple of days will really show just how serious this situation is. I was already getting reports from Israel as well. At the same time, I was getting the report about President Pence, where his plane was stopped on the runway. He was sent back to the Pentagon at that very same moment. We had Vladimir Putin was also canceling his own meetings for the day to meet Shoigu, his own defense minister, about a serious situation with the submarine that was now coming back in port. Of course, this had actually happened on the 1st of July, and we're just now getting these bits and pieces of this story coming out now. But as far as my Israeli source that I have, I was told that while all this was going on at the same time when the shift rotation was coming in with Israeli military that normally would come home around 1:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon, suddenly all of Israel's military forces were being called back into the base, and as of midnight Israeli time, those forces were still at the base as they were going through briefing information in Israel. So we are seeing a very serious situation, and I want to take you now to Debka File, where they're reporting here, urgent, the title of their broadcast, urgent consultations in Washington, Moscow on reported U.S.-Russian submarines in firefight. This was on July the 2nd, 2019, at 2400 hours Israeli time. It is now, of course, 8:47 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States, here on July 2nd, as we also pick up the same story. First reports reaching Debka's military sources said that a U.S. submarine intercepted a Russian nuclear sub in American waters opposite Alaska. Now that's kind of what was being said with Hal Turner. The Russian sub escorting the nuclear submarine responded with a Balkan 2000 torpedo and scuttled the U.S. vessel. Urgent consultations in both the White House and Kremlin were taking place on Tuesday night. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence called off an appearance in New Hampshire after being called to Washington for a conference call by President Donald Trump without explanation. Russian President Vladimir Putin canceled an engagement and headed for the Kremlin to confer with the Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and military chiefs after learning that 14 submariners died in a fire that broke out on a nuclear-powered experimental submarine in Russian waters. This account, carried in Russian media, varies in most respects from the first report reaching this site and may refer to the separated incident. They reported between 14 to 17 members of an AS-12 nuclear-powered submarine died of poisonous fumes caused by a fire aboard the vessel. Now, we were being told that 17 people died, 25 were actually injured in this. And on to top it all off, we also know that besides, as we reported yesterday, that the over to Qatar, the United States had moved in 10 F-22s. Now we're also being told that the United States has sent in F-16s as well, Strike Eagles, also to the region there near Iran. And now Israel is talking about going at Iran alone if the U.S. doesn't do it for them. So on every side, the situation is getting very, very difficult. And as I was told when we were having the situation with Iran allegedly using mines on the side of the Japanese oil tankers there, that in fact it was actually different operatives that had been trained by the United Arab Emirates or United Arab Emirates ISIS Al-Qaeda members that had placed those drones there, excuse me, not drones, but placed those mines on the side of the ship to make it look like Iran had actually carried out the attack. Even then, I was asked in an emergency middle of the night request, I was asked to report to you guys that we need to get a private meeting between President Putin and President Trump, a face-to-face to avert a major war in the region there that could actually have consequences here back at home in the United States. That's not been taken lightly, friends. And as much as I am against war in the Middle East, I'm also against that war spilling over that would affect millions of Americans, not only our brothers and sisters who fight in the military around the globe, them being in harm's way as well. So unless cooler heads prevail, or unless we end up with Bolton dominating the conversation about going to war in the Middle East and dragging Russia into it as well, we're in a world of mess. It also goes on to say the nuclear-powered submarine died of poisonous fumes caused by a fire aboard the vessel. The submarine was described as experimental and unarmed, but often used in spy missions. It is unclear how many of the 25 crews survived. Local media suggests 4 or 5 are receiving treatment in Svesmorsk military hospital for poisoning and concussion injuries. Another news account said the majority of the officers died in or on their way to the hospital. These reports do not cite the cause of the fire. That's what Debka File is reporting on this situation right now. We do know, and I have been reluctant to bring the information out as of yet because I was waiting for some more confirmation information about the situation. But with Debka reporting this particular part, I felt like that we could be safe to bring out this information thus far. If we go to Hal Turner, and I actually had one source from DC that did send that information to me from Hal Turner, where Hal Turner is also talking about the submarine. And we have right here, report American submarine torpedoed and sunk off Alaska coast. And says Hal Turner reported here that the submarine off the coast of Alaska was reportedly torpedoed and sunk during a firefight with Russian submarine after the American sub allegedly intercepted the Russian sub in American waters. The Russian submarine allegedly sustained heavy damage in the fight with upwards of 14 crew killed. Now, I also have another source, intelligence source, that knows more about the Russian sub that was actually hit. And I was told that that submarine also is very vital to a defensive posture for Russia's cruise missile capabilities. And I don't have that information in front of me to read to you, or maybe I can. Give me 1 second. Or no, I can't because I'm actually using my phone to record this broadcast, so I can't read it there. I'll tell you what I can do. Let me do like this here. I'm going to take the screen down for just a moment, and I can give you a little bit more information about that situation there as well. So let me just kind of give you a little update here. And let's see here. Yes, okay. The submarine that was actually struck apparently was a counterintelligence sub. It was designed to interrupt any cyber attack to the Russian ballistic missile defense system and also initiate similar attacks. That's what was actually being shared with me today. And this whole issue about this being just some kind of fire, it was also told to me that that was far-fetched, what people are saying about that as of right now. So the situation is very fluid, friends. It's very fluid. And so I just really encourage you to be in prayer. Pray for the nation. Pray for both nations. Pray for the leadership, both the United States and Russia, that these men will use a little bit more cooler heads and not allow the warmongers in either country's cabinet to push both nations to war. The situation right now with Iran is very serious as well. And so I just encourage you to be in prayer for our men and women in uniform as well, and that more lives can be spared. And of course, regardless of loss of life from either side, our condolences to the families, because no family deserves to see their family members have to die in such a manner. Now, it is interesting too, and I will say this as well, that when Russia spoke about the incident, they did mention, I think Hal Turner mentions this in his own report there, that that Russia reported it on RT that they were in Russian waters. Kind of seems odd that Russia would say that, unless it could either be true, not be true, who knows? And I have not looked to see if the time frame of the sub getting back to the base there in Russia, if it was ample time. I'm sure it probably was, because they would probably go under the ice caps there. There's a waterway there that they can go up under that ice caps there back into Russia's Northern Fleet base there, if it was actually Alaskan waters from what I was being told. I also know that there was another issue going on during the training exercise that's underway right now, I believe in the Black Sea. I'm still not quite sure if there's any relationship to these incidents that is happening now. Anyway, I will update you guys as more information comes available. And so just bear with us there. And, you know, listen, I will tell you, and I'll tell you straight up, friends, you know, it's not a bad idea to kind of stock up a little bit, as if you were going to have a really bad hurricane, like hitting the Gulf Coast or something. Make sure you have some extra things for you and your family. And also we want to thank you for those of you that support this broadcast as well, because you're the ones that make it possible for us to be able to tell people around the world what's going on. So thank you. And listen, I know some people inevitably will end up making comments like, you're just warmongering. No, we're not warmongering. In fact, one of our sources has the confidence that when they share some of these things with us, that it helps avert war. I don't know why. I really don't. I mean, do I really reach that many people? Maybe that's the issue. Maybe it's enough people that we're reaching that it causes you as American citizens to pick up a phone and call your congressman, call your senators and say, look, we don't want war. We don't want war with Iran. We don't want war with Russia. We need to see the two world leaders sit down together and work out their differences. And I was told that the reason why that's not happened as of yet is because there's too many in his administration, as well as the Democrats, that are saying that it's all this Russian collusion. You know, there comes a time you have to put that aside. For the safety of the American people, as well as the safety of people around the world, because a war between two superpowers is not going to go over well. And even the situation in Iran could spiral out of control the same way. I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. In a world of Ein Shalom, there is no peace. Good evening.